Namaste. So it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, which is, in my experience, the lowest number of views of the whole year. I guess people are recovering from all the stress of Christmas. I don't do it anymore. I just don't do Christmas anymore. Sorry, I'm Mr. Grinch here. But what I want to do today is talk about the antifragility of real religion, real spiritual life, which of course is based on consciousness. That's why I'm not wearing my tripundra or beads or anything really. The naked truth. So what are we talking about? Antifragility. Well, I've gone over deeply the concept of antifragility in an earlier series, Apophatic Antifragility, which I put this video in that playlist. So you should see those earlier videos on your discovery pane in the browser on YouTube, or if you're using the YouTube app. So I'm not going to go deeply into the concept of antifragility, but basically one sentence definition is any process that benefits from volatility. What is volatility? Change. So, the typical approach to religion and spiritual life is tradition, isn't it? There are so many traditions in the world, and it seems like their whole aim is to keep everything the same. But of course, hey, this is the material world, and it doesn't work like that. Everything changes. Everything goes through 6 phases according to the I Ching, according to Buddha also. And they are conception, gestation, birth, growth, production of byproducts, dissolution, and death. Death is the 7th stage. So the I Ching says all phenomena go through 6 changes, and the 7th brings return. So what is return? Well, in human life, we experience return as rebirth. Or sometimes if we go through some deep, fundamental process of change, we will come out of the other side of it and feel like a new person. And we say, oh, I feel reborn. So what brought this on was the other day, Michael McClure and I had a wonderful conversation about antifragility and religion or spiritual life. And basically the conclusion of this is that any kind of a rigid structure is not going to be adequate for real spiritual life, leading to authentic enlightenment and like that. Why not? Because things change. People change. Cultures change. Times change. The astrology changes. Everything changes in time. So the things that appear to be reliable and steady over time are proven to be not so reliable. Well, let me give you an example from my life. I was just in touch with a godbrother of mine, a senior godbrother of the same spiritual master, my Adi Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And he was saying, what's with you anyway? 10 years ago, you were a Krishna consciousness guru. And then you went into Buddhism. And then you went into something else. And now you're a Shaivite Shakta sannyasi. Well, what's up with that? And I said, actually, I am none of those things. I never was any of those things. When I was a Krishna conscious guru, I didn't think of myself as a Hare Krishna. When I was living in a Buddhist monastery, I didn't consider myself a Buddhist. And even now, I certainly don't consider myself a Shaivite or a Shakta or actually anything. What am I? Well, if we go back to the original, one of the original series on this channel, Being in the World, it's based on existentialism. And what existentialism shows us is that the experience of being in the world cannot fit in any structure, because every structure has limits and boundaries, and we don't. Consciousness is the fundamental experience of being. So if I can say I am anything, I'd have to say I am a sentient being. I am consciousness. I am conscious. I am aware, and I am awareness. When I was practicing the Buddha's teaching, there are a series of 8 meditations called jhanas that lead you right to the doorstep of nirvana. So the first 4 of these are relatively easy to understand. Concentration of the mind on one point. Stillness and silence of the mind. Contemplation of one's real nature, and rapture, ecstasy, bliss. So the most popular series on this channel is called The Secret of the Golden Flower. And The Secret of the Golden Flower is based on actually these 4 lower jhanas, although it doesn't say so, but functionally it's so. In The Secret of the Golden Flower, one is advised to take one's attention, which is normally focused outward on the world through the senses, and turn it around to focus inward on the nature of the self. What is the self? Who am I? What am I? And to experience oneself, to meditate on oneself, to concentrate the attention on the self, which of course is nothing but consciousness. And this leads step by step to ecstasy, rapture, bliss. Very nice. And a lot of people get hung up on that. In Thailand, they have a saying, the monks have a saying, that so-and-so, is up a tree. He's sitting on the pole, on the flagpole. Sounds really uncomfortable, but what it really means is he has got to the 4th jhana. He's experiencing bliss, and now he's stuck. He can't get beyond it. He can't let go of this bliss. Because after all, we're all seeking happiness, right? But happiness can only exist in distinction from unhappiness. And that means there has to be a self who desires happiness and who desires not to have unhappiness. So, yeah, bliss is very nice. But the experience of bliss, if you really get it, if you really understand it, changes your whole approach to life and everything. Because now you realize the source of happiness is within me. The source of happiness is me. It's not anything outside. Buddha Das Bhikkhu, a very influential monk, he described it like this. Where do we find happiness? It's in the satisfaction of desires, right? What is a desire? A desire is a state of tension in the mind. I want this or I don't want that. And so when that desire is satisfied, the tension relaxes and we experience ourselves as we really are. And what is that? Happiness. That's all. So when you have the key to essentially unlimited happiness, you don't worry about it anymore. You don't even desire it anymore. It's like a person, if you've ever read or met a person who has a lot of money, enough money that they never have to worry about it. They never have to work again in their whole life. Are they worried about money? No. Do they think about money? No. You know, it's like, Jason, replace the yacht with a newer model. You know? They don't think about money. They don't even, if there's a saying among rich people, if you have to ask how much it is, you can't afford it. So the new Learjet will be parked at your reserved hangar on the airport, sir. You know, don't ask the price. That's for small, insignificant creatures like lawyers and accountants. So in the same way, you want happiness? You find the source of happiness within. And you have more happiness than you know what to do with. So then do you think about, oh, I want to get happy by doing this, by having that, by being this and such, and going there and so, and what? No. It's like all I have to do is sit here and look within. So it changes your whole relationship with happiness and desire and doing and having and going and being and this and that and the other thing. It's not an issue anymore. Huh? You don't have to ask whether you can afford it. It's a done deal. You got it. Huh? You don't have to go for it. You can have it delivered. So in the same way, when you get into the higher jhanas, these are beyond bliss. Beyond bliss, beyond happiness or unhappiness. And what's the first one? The fifth jhana is unlimited space. Right now we live in a very limited space. We think I am this body, or even I am this mind, which are all limited. We can say, oh, my mind isn't limited. I can imagine this and that and everything. But if you look into it really deeply, you will find that whatever you can conceive or imagine is based on what you have experienced before. It's based on the past. We see the future as simply an improved version of the past, isn't it? I mean, really look into it and really be honest with yourself. You can't imagine anything. Try and sit down, if you're an artist or a writer or any kind of creative person, sit down with a blank sheet of paper and try to imagine perfection. You will find that anything you can come up with is simply an improved version of the past. So the mind is limited. The body is certainly limited. So anything that we can imagine is going to be limited. So we say, don't imagine anything. Imagine space. Unlimited, infinite space. How big is infinite? Infinite is so big that the whole universe, even though it's so vast and has millions and billions of galaxies and whatever, becomes insignificant and actually just disappears in comparison with really infinite space, unlimited space. As far as we know, space is infinite. There doesn't seem to be any boundary to it. Some people say, well, it's finite but unbounded, whatever that means. You have to be a mathematician, I think, to understand that. But space is basically unlimited. So, In fact, that's the definition of space, isn't it? Just open space with no boundaries, no distinctions. You can't tell one part of space from another part of space. They're all the same. Nothingness, emptiness. Then the sixth jhana is, how do we know this space? Well, we fill it with our consciousness, don't we? So, if we have unlimited space, we can fill it with unlimited consciousness. Consciousness is like space. It's just something where stuff shows up. It can be as big as you want. In fact, the whole universe and God and everybody shows up in your consciousness. So, how is this possible? That means consciousness is bigger than space. Then, try to imagine nothingness. Meditate on nothingness. Nothingness. And of course, if there's nothing to perceive, then you don't know whether you're perceiving or not perceiving. So the highest jhana is neither perception nor non-perception. And that leads to nirvana. Nibbana. Because you realize at a certain point, throughout all of this, I have been there. My consciousness, my being, is lighting up this space. Wherever you go, there you are, right? So this is the only platform, consciousness, awareness. It doesn't have to be awareness of anything. It could just be awareness of awareness. Is the only thing that doesn't change. Everything else is subject to change. So the only platform that can be a basis for an anti-fragile religion is consciousness or awareness. Strictly speaking, awareness, because consciousness is always consciousness of something. There's a subject and an object, and that's duality. But we want to talk about pure awareness without any object. And that's going to be the subject of the next couple of videos. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.